Today's presentation is the first in our Fandom Track, and it's like nothing I have ever heard before, so I'm really interested in what we're about to hear. Welcome Sandy Ferguson, a minister at Strathearn United Church, with a discussion of how he uses Yuri as inspiration in his sermons. Sandy, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. My name is Sandy Ferguson. You'll notice I have an accent. I'm originally from Scotland. I've lived in Canada for over 30 years. And as Erica said, I'm a minister of the United Church of Canada. I think it might be useful to have a couple of little introductory stories because I'm fully aware of the possible, I'm fully aware that as a Christian minister, there'll be people who'd automatically wonder, what the hell am I talking? With the damage done by white evangelicals in particular, it is fair to say that most people assume Christians are homophobes. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them in the slightest, considering the amount of rhetoric that I have to plow through, and considering on myself, anytime I dare to imply that I am not one of those homophobic ministers, that I'm informed I'm a heretic, I'm not Christian, I'm a devil worshiper, whatever. I can only imagine what it's like for someone who is part of the LGBTQ community to have to deal with this garbage and not to be enthusiastic to hear what I might have to say. So I certainly appreciate that. And there's a story in particular that I often think about. I've participated in pride parades here in Edmonton in the last few years, and one in particular, we were asked to wear our collars, clerical collars. I usually don't wear mine. And I walked to the parade area through the crowd. And the thought that occurred to me is that the people in the crowd, when they see me walking around with my clerical collar on, would automatically assume, rightly, I was there to protest the pride parade, not participate. And so I'm fully aware of that anger, that the rejection, and I know where you're coming from. So I appreciate, if you do listen, I appreciate your willingness to hopefully hear that we're not all like that, but way too many of us are. And I will also say, many of us are not loud enough to silence the voice of the homophobic bullies. We're too content to kind of not be noticed. So that's my introduction. The other story, hopefully, is a little more. I was smiling as I wrote it. Here at Strathearn, we have a service once a year where we have mainly students from the University of Alberta. And I always take an opportunity, my sermon's for them. I preach to them. The rest of the congregation, yeah, you're here other weeks. Sorry, it's this long. And in the last service we had in 2022 for this group, this was at the height of the Christian transphobia in the States. I wanted to be very clear where I stood on that. And so I preached, and one of the things I made abundantly clear, that if Jesus was to be here today, he would be much happier, much more inclined to attend a drag event. But there he would have a whale of a time. He would just be in his element, enjoying the celebration of life. He would rather be doing that than going to a service of the Southern Baptists or whatever. Like, he would listen to these dour-faced so-and-so rattling on about how much they hated other people in the name of Jesus. Yeah, Jesus would not be interested in that. So I preached this message, and as often happens with these services, a couple of students will come up and will be kind of like amazed that a Christian minister would say these kind of things. One of them asked, was that an anime mug you were drinking from? I said, oh yeah, it's Bloomin' to You, one of my favorite. So we had this conversation about Yuri manga, and they were very impressed. Oh, well, isn't this amazing? And then they mentioned citrus. And I mentioned I had read citrus in the past. And then there was this withering look. How could you read such trash? She said to me. I'm no longer cool. I'm your straight white male minister who tried to be cool for a few shining moments, and all of a sudden I'm the one who read trash. And so I always kind of think about that story. So that's who I am. I am a fan and I'm a fan who has used Yuri manga considerably in my sermons and my pastoral care, my minister's musings to illustrate various points. In my own ministry, I have worked tirelessly, I hope, to attack Christian homophobia, to attack Christian transphobia. I've worked hard with the scripture passages that are used by the Christian homophobes and their ilk to justify their hatred. And I could go into excruciating detail on how they're wrong, and they're very wrong. And also the hypocrisy of these people about they focus on those passages. And when Jesus says you're supposed to love everyone, and by the way, stop judging other people because I really don't like that. I think it's crickets on that. But I've worked hard, and I work hard, particularly with the gay clergy in our denomination, because the United Church of Canada is a progressive church. We have a well-established reputation for being, as I just said today in a sermon, wishy-washy radicals. I can't think of a better way to describe this. We have strived to be affirming in terms of the LGBT community. We have made many strides. We're a work in progress, but we are, by the lights, we celebrate same-sex marriage. I've celebrated one same-sex marriage. I've celebrated transgender marriage. So there's a whole, we're getting there in some ways. In other ways, we're still to catch up. I myself, as I said, I'm a straight white male in my mid-50s. Young according to the church. Well, so there you go. I'm young and hip as far as the church is concerned. I came late into the world of manga, novels, anime, and all the other associated works. It was in my 40s. And I discovered the work of Asuna Hasakura, Spice and Wolf, which continues to be one of my favorite series. The running joke is I came for the Eke and discovered how to learn about medieval economics. And now in the next series, and I'm not joking, the sequel series is how the Protestant Reformation works with furries. You know, that's maybe being a little disingenuous, but that's kind of what's going on. So, as someone who is an adult convert to the faith, my toolkit of symbolism, imagery, and whatever, I didn't grow up in Sunday school. So when I try to find ways to explore my faith and whatever, I latch onto the things I did grow up. Star Trek, The Lord of the Rings, other works by J.R. Tolkien, and Douglas Adams. And Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett is also a very big influence. And so when I discovered anime and manga and all this whole new genre of stuff, I was just like, wow. You know, there was some, Spice and Wolf was in particular, some really powerful imagery in there that I wanted to share. And so I often use quotes. And the imagery is often in my head. And sometimes it pops in unexpected moments. Like, a few years ago, when Star Trek Discovery was on, I was looking out into the congregation and noticed one of our banners, we put banners up on the walls, was very reminiscent of the banner of the Terran Empire, the evil Terran Empire. So, okay, I'm not keep that to myself. So I shared these references and shared those insights. And someone once asked me, why do you do this? You know, why not just tell us the Bible? Are you trying to be cool? No, because I can't be cool. I'm a United Church minister. De facto, I'm not cool. But the real reason was the Bible itself is a product of people who wrote this stuff over 1,500 years, constantly influenced by the popular culture around them. The Genesis narrative at the beginning of the Bible is a pastiche of the Babylonian creation myth that people listened to, they gathered to, they knew the story. The Bible has always been a product of people using popular image of the world around them to make a point about God. Just today I made the point about Paul. Paul uses imagery of the Greek city to explain the kingdom of God to his audience, who were mainly Greeks and Romans living. So they, because they didn't understand what the stuff that Jesus said, and his stuff was kind of all about the hill country in the Galilee, and they didn't know anything about that. They weren't farmers. So my point is, I say these things, I do these things because they mean something to me. So that's the kind of larger picture. What was the first Yuri manga? Kase-san and Morning Glories. Sunday, it was after Palm Sunday one year, and I was looking for something to read. I was in the chapters here in Winnipeg, here in Edmonton, and I was stressed. It's a busy week for me. Holy Week is a busy week, and I needed something to relax. Took that off the shelf, started reading with it, and I was hooked. Just loved it. It was just a wonderful combination of heartwarming and also just a little edge of challenge, a little edge of, yes, this is slice of life. Yes, this is heartwarming, but there are some issues here, some questions here. And we're going to wrap them up in cuteness. I'm going to suck you in. And now I'm at the stage where I get angry. I just got an email this week from Amazon telling me that the date of the most recent release of Volume 3 has been changed from June to November, and I can assure you that ruined my night. Did not want to hear that. Anywho, so it was just wonderful, but it was also touching in the sense of these are real people. I remember something that Nakatani Neo said in Bloom to You. She said, she feels that these stories are real and she just plucked them out of the air and just written them down. And that has been an image that's often stuck with me, a story can be real. So, and just one other point I'm going to make as a general point, and this is how fan fiction has played a major role in how I approach scripture. This is something that came to me last night. I write fan fiction, I read fan fiction, and one of the things I found out about fan fiction is how people like to change the story, change the characters, particularly Blooming to You. Everyone seems to want Sachi and you to be the couple. I remember once putting them in as a kind of search, and there's a whole whack of stories. I don't really care for it myself. I'm a traditionalist. I'm old school. I'm a fundamentalist in my fanfic, not in the Bible, but in my fanfic. And one of the things I discovered was how much like fan fiction that is the Bible. It was like, wow, people writing stories to fix the original stories, to fix the original meaning, to make sense of what they wanted to read, what they want to believe. So I now see the Bible as fan fiction. So, little pieces. I'm going to start off with Kase-san and Yamada. Wow. When it comes to the connection of Yuri in my life in the church, Kase-san and Morning Glories, as I said, was the beacon. And I've made reference to the comfort read aspect, but also the joy of learning their lives together. Feel good story. And then one day I realized why I liked it so much. Kase-san and Yamada became, and for me, a reflection, an insight into one of the most important teachings of Jesus from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12:31. The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. This is what I began to understand about Kase-san and Yamada, is in their struggle to love one another, there's an underlying struggle of learning to love themselves. This story of theirs really brought that teaching to light for me. It was like, wow, this insight. And I shared this with the congregation. And there was this other quote in particular that I found really moving. And this is, it says, when Yamada looks, this is from Kase-san and Strawberry Drops. Yamada looks out of the aircraft window and says, it's incredible. The sky is so beautiful. There's nothing above the clouds. Did you know that, Kase-san? I did, maybe. It was always funny. It's always sunny above the clouds. Amazing. On days when bad stuff happens, on days when I can't make any decisions, on days when the flowers dry up here in the sky, it's just bam, super sunny all the time. just like this. Now, you know this, don't you kind of feel like you would put more energy into all kinds of stuff? Now, I shared this quote as a kind of an invitation for people to explore what does it mean to be a person of faith? The larger picture, when we do feel the discouragement, the struggles, the challenges of being a Christian, particularly being a Christian in a world that doesn't understand that there are actually Christians who are not hateful, judgmental, whatever kind of people. And I use it as a challenge to try and make the world a better place. And I received some really positive comments about that. People just loved it. I think what they loved was the simplicity of it all. That there was a recognition. Yes, there are challenges in our life. Yes, there are times when we really worry about this stuff. Like in the way the language was, God is still there. God is still shining in our lives. God is with us in our moments of peril and whatever. And so I was really touched, and especially, it's because of that odd situation where I try to explain what I'm talking about to people, and they're like, the background and whatever doesn't really make much sense. But there's those little words, those details that kind of sink in. And in particular, one thing in terms of the religious theme about Kase-san Yamada was I was able to attend a pilgrimage. In 2019, I attended the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, and I was able to listen to Erica do this wonderful presentation on the 100 years of manga. But also, I actually was able to attend the Blessed Presence of Hiroma Takashima, listen to her talk about her work, and I even came away with a relic, and she actually autographed my prized copy. I'm not sure what this is going to, and I actually walked with this at a pride parade afterwards, just to kind of ensure its holiness. So there you go, the odd way of a fandom. The next one I want to talk about is Otherside Picnic. A quote from the File 4, the manga version, File 4, Time Space Man, Volume 3 of the manga. God doesn't require you to succeed. He only requires that you try. Now, for some reason, this quote is on a t-shirt worn by Soro Kamikoshi, which is odd when you know her story. I can make references like she needs to work on her English, to read something before wearing something going around like that, because it's a super Christian thought, and Soro was by no stretch of the imagination Christian. And I mentioned that as my quote. What I really appreciate by Otherside Picnic by Arui Miyazawa is the various themes it explores. The exploring of the mysterious world of the other side and the equally mysterious world of human relationships. The themes in particular that really spoke to me is recovering from trauma. We're works in progress. This is something I very much get in Otherside Picnic. We are works in progress. We are continually working with ourselves, with the people around us, with the traumas we continue to deal with from the past, the traumas we suffer in day-to-day life. And sometimes we are tired, sometimes we're weary, sometimes we don't want to keep on going, and other times we have enough energy to live life. And I have always felt this is an important message. I'm very much of the school of thought that faith for me is something that helps me through my day-to-day life, but I don't expect it to be perfect. I've often been told my faith is actually quite stark in some ways, in that I don't believe in the God who I can pray to for a better donut, a better parking spot, or even a miracle. In all honesty, I've been in situations where, why did this person not get the healing miracle and the other person did? That's another topic. But I found Soro's story in particular compelling because she is a survivor of an abusive relationship with both her family and religion, and the cult that she's part of. And to be honest, the reason I found those stories compelling is because of my own experiences. I have dealt with abuse from a religious group. My ministry in the past, I've dealt with clergy abuse in terms of being abused as a member of clergy. And my own family situation was, as I joke, standard issue West Coast of Scotland, dysfunctional, alcoholism, domestic violence, that kind of stuff. And in particular, that joke I just made very much reminds me of one of the most kind of heartbreaking moments for me when reading File 4, when Sorrow talks about the horrible things that happened to her, and they're profoundly horrible. And she just shrugs it off. Does this kind of thing happen to ordinary people? And Kozukura is like, no, it doesn't. What's wrong with you? Like, how to process. So, and I remember reading that series, and boy, did it speak to me, because that was something that I was used to. Something I was used to kind of downplaying the abuse, downplaying the tragedy, downplaying the trauma, because you want to fit in. You don't want people to feel sorry for you. You don't want people to kind of try and help you or whatever, because you can do it yourself. And we can't. We need people in our lives. We need people to be there to support us, to care for us, to challenge us, to be open to our struggles, to be open to our pain. Yes, these are fictional characters, but they can really speak to us. And in some ways, they can speak to us more clearly because they are people we know from the pages of a book. And in this book, I met people who were willing to work with one another and stumble. The conversations between Sorowo and Toriko and Nishiya, it's like, wow, we don't know what we're doing, and I am eagerly, and I mean eagerly, waiting for volume 8, because holy mackerel, I've been spoiled enough as it is, and it's still like the build-up, the emotional build-up after all the volumes, the little throwaway, whatever. But that challenge, and to share, so I share these moments, these stories with my congregation to give people insights, to be able to speak to themselves. What's going on in your life? Where's your trauma? You might not want to identify with real people, but a fictional character can sometimes speak more to you because they're a creation and yet still feel real. These are real people from the pages of a book. And so, as I say, the Otherside Picnic, a mysterious world filled with terrors, can be a place of healing if we journey with someone who we're willing to trust, experience, connection, and a work in progress. That is as I recently said a few weeks ago, my vision of the journey of faith is it's the journey for me that matters. I don't care about the destination. I'm not interested that much in the afterlife, whatever, it'll work itself out. I'm interested in the people I meet on the road, people who I can relate to. Doesn't matter if they're members of the church or not. We're all doing the best that we can. Blooming to You, the one that for a brief shining moment made me cool, by Nakatani Neil. I talk about there being a trinity of my favorite Yuri manga. Kase-san and Yamada, Blooming to You, Otherside. It's funny because I'd actually picked up Blooming to You before reading Kase-san, and I wasn't that kind of, there was some bits that I thought was iffy in the first volume. And I remember reading a review by Erica and kind of like afterwards, like, yeah, maybe I was right there. And then I reread it, and it became, and then slowly the story grew on me and the people. And one of the reasons that it grew with me is because I started to really appreciate Koitoyu's vision of what it means to be in love and her struggles to learn that. And it was personal for me because I saw in her struggles of learning to love my own struggles to be a person of faith. As I mentioned, I'm an adult convert. Technically, I'm born again. I love telling born again Christians that, because then they get really disappointed really fast when they discover what I mean by being born again. And so I struggle with, what does it mean to be a person of faith? And I would know people and I would talk to them and they would share their stories of faith. And I would be like, I want what they have, but I don't feel it in my heart. To read Koitoyu's story about what it means to be in love in a world, or what it means to not think you're being in love, but trying to be in love and trying to look for the clues of where it all makes sense. And you're reaching out to the stars and you're not noticing the stuff around you. And so her journey, her own pursuits, her own vision really spoke to me. Really kind of, I could feel it. I could feel it myself. This was a fictional character on a different topic, and yet her struggle to learn how to be in love, rooted in the ground, rooted in the experiences around her, not so much in the expectations of the world, more what she experiences through her relationship with Nanami Tuko. Like, wow, that's what faith means for me. And I would, and I still have that sense of that connection. And it's interesting because we often talk about the Bible being allegory. And so here I'm talking about a manga being allegory. So and this is going to be my last little shot as it were. And this little story from volume 3, Inori's I'm in Love with the Villainess, it hit me hard. I'm lucky enough to know gay clergy within the United Church, and I know gay clergy from the larger other churches. And so when we have that conversation, being LGBTQ in a vocation where a large part of the world who are Christian will think you're an abomination, like, how does that feel? Like, and it's safe to say, this is a dreadful reality, there are many in the United Church who would not be comfortable with having an LGBTQ clergy serving their congregation. That exists. I'm not going to deny it doesn't. And so I've talked about them with that experience, that kind of strength of their faith, their connection and their vision. And then to read the short story, Your Pain is Not Punishment. Inori is one of the few writers who were talking about religion and same-sex sexuality, and that's quite a refreshing thing. How that works. Obviously, it's part of the context of her fantasy game world, but still, I really appreciated the points that she made. And this little story, Your Pain is Not Punishment, really illustrated for me the tension between faith in a God who says we are all equally blessed. We are all equally invited to be part of the hope of the kingdom of God. And then an institution that says, not you. You don't count. You don't count because you want to be true to who God made you to be. So you don't count. I'm sorry. Your same-sex relationship? No, we're not going to accept that. And I was like, to me, that was just, to be used a technical term, bullshit. I was not going to stand with that. And I never have. And so to read this story, the Sister Lily listening to Sister Ellie's struggle, and her response, the world may seem unfair because of our sexual orientation, but I know this, that unfairness isn't willed by God, but by humankind. Now, I knew that in my head, and I've spoke about that in my head. But to see it put so succinctly in a simple one line saying, in many ways reminds me that a storyteller is a lot more effective at telling a truth than a religious professional. So if I was to say something like that, I would have a whole lack of context. This is what I mean, blah, blah, blah. And I might just drown people in the information. Here, succinct and clear. And this last minute piece that I want to add is also a very eloquent rejection of one of the most things I absolutely despise in Christianity, is when people will tell you with a straight face, I love the sinner but hate the sin. That is one of the most god-awful things a Christian can say to anyone, because it's once more, to use another technical term, it's bullshit. If you're going to love the so-called sinner, you're going to love the sin as well. And by the way, it's not a sin anyway. It is who they're being. So when you say to an LGBTQ person that you love the sinner but hate the sin, you're actually lying. You're engaging in something that, as I've said before, Jesus does not do, tells us not to do. You don't judge other people. So that's a kind of like general flyby. And I do, as I said, I share these quotes, I share these thoughts. My final kind of thought, my final kind of revelation, as I say, is due to the diversity of Yuri manga, I've been blessed with such a wide variety of insights into the human condition through the power of sharing in stories. I feel that's my role as a clergy when I preach, is I share a story, I tell a story, and invite other people to listen to the story, to learn from the story, and be filled with insights. We may change the world, we may change ourselves, we may change a community. I hope that what I've done over the last years of my ministry is I have hopefully changed this community to be more open, to be more inclusive, to be more aware of these issues. I have an unofficial nickname, Bake the Bloody Cake, and that's in reference to these so-called Christian bakers who refuse to bake wedding cakes. And I would tell them, Jesus would tell you, bake the bloody cake. In fact, I actually have a box of cake mix in my office as a reminder of that. Yuri has the power, like any form of literature, any form of genre literature, to share stories that can change other people's lives. And just recently, I read a manga about asexuality that once more was that. And so, yeah, that's all she wrote. And I will continue to do so, and I will continue to hopefully be inspired. And thank you, Erica, for this opportunity, and thank you for all who've shared this. Thank you.
Okay, and wow, Sandy, that was amazing. Honestly, I was really blown away by that. Thank you so much for that tremendously inspirational panel, presentation. I'm deeply impressed.
I've been dealing with the cognitive dissonance of the whole affair from start to finish. From when you made that point, like, why don't you do a presentation? I'm going like, oh my God, really?
No, that was fantastic. I especially particularly like that you saw getting your signed copy from Takashi Hiromi Sensei as a relic, and I thought, oh my God, of course, yes. I've joked about this for years that we go on anime pilgrimages. My wife and I have gone to many a location, and we took the tour in 2019. We took the 100 Years of Yuri tour to specific locations as a pilgrimage. And in a sense, yes, of course, we're going to Yuri-ten and buying stuff as a pilgrimage and bringing back relics. In my gallery, I have also a piece of art from Takashi Sensei. And of course, yes, they are relics, and they are to some extent meaningful in the way that relics were to medieval pilgrims. So that was such a tremendous notation for me. It hadn't really occurred to me that yes, we do give these things the same kind of weight.
They really do. Like I have a lot. I don't think I have any religious relics at all. I'd be more happy. I'm just trying to think, like, my relics are like model kits I've worked really hard on. Like
exactly. So if you were to be working in the Middle Ages, for instance, or the Renaissance, and you're a person who is helping out with the local cathedral or the local church, that work is holy work. Yes. It's your sacrifice, it's your gift to God. And while my gods are not your God, my gods appreciate it just as much because we're putting the same kind of effort into it, And but it was a really, really good point. And are you in fact drinking from an anime cup today?
Yes, I am. It's blooming to you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. I was gonna be like, you have to do that. Well, thank you again.
Actually, I'll stand up so you get a better shot of the t-shirt.
Great shirt. That's the Yuri Hearts shirt from the Yuri store. I like it in purple. I'm wearing my gods right now too. So that's Sailor Moon right there. From the Sailor Moon Super Live. These are my deities. And that's only half a joke, because my wife was doing an altar to this year for Saturnalia, and she was doing 7 altars, and each day was associated with a god and a planet. And we were joking that if we took the picture of the gods off the candle and put the picture of the Sachi on the candle, it would work just the same. And so she took a picture of Venus and Sailor Moon on their candles, and you know what? Works the same in our heads. So there you go.
I was actually I was wearing this underneath my robes today during worship, because I was actually a little annoyed when I came into worship, because I actually have a picture from Otherside Picnic on the pulpit. There's a couple of pictures I find really impactful. So I came into worship today. It's like, there's my picture. They bloody cleaned up the pulpit again and this kind of stuff. But yeah, to me, as I said, like as I said at the beginning, I fully understand. Like, I'm annoyed by them too. Like, and I remember one of my more obnoxious stories. I was on the bus and I was heading up to White Avenue, and I was dressed like this. I had an anime t-shirt on and a shirt over, and 2 Mormon missionaries came up to me, and one of them introduced themselves as Sister such and such, and I thought, fuck it, I'm going to go for it. I'm Reverend Sandy Ferguson. And so we started having this conversation, and they were like looking at me like, yeah, right. And then I actually said, some of us ministers actually even swear, ha ha ha. I looked down and just about to miss my bus stop, and I actually yell out, oh shit. And these 2 Mormon missionaries are going like, what the hell? And I have this, but yeah, to me, that I don't do this to evangelize. Like, right. I do this because it's meaningful to me. And I get blowback. Like, I got this really awful email from someone telling me to stop with the Star Trek references. And I said,
there's always going to be people who are annoyed by whatever choices you make. I mean, that's a given, but I think in a lot of ways you found a way to be very relatable, and that is a service in and of itself.
And because I enjoy this stuff. Like, I'm not very organized in one thing. One thing I am organized about is my pre-orders for my Mac. Pages after pages, and as I said, I really was, when I saw that notice from Amazon saying, chapter saying, oh, we had to move the release date.
Yeah, it's very irritating. Yes. No, this is important to me. No, I understand entirely. And I'm sure I'm not alone in the sense that I buy some of the ebooks or the digital versions so I can read it. And then I'll get the print version so I have it. And that's old fandom behavior, but
oh well, I do too. Like I'm a huge technological business. Like like today I'm actually going, as I said, like I just recently, I know that the cheeky I'm in love with the villainous sequel title. I bought that.
So cheeky for a commenter, right?
And I'm looking at my upcoming stuff to read, and if I'd done this at home, you would have seen the piles of manga on the site. And Jen, my wife, is kind of like, okay, why are they there? Well, I might get round to reading them.
Right, they're your to read pile. Of course, we all have those. I have them one in every room, except for this one, which is all the red piles. So, yeah.
It's like,
that's absolutely true. Well, I want to just say thank you so much. That was genuinely inspirational and really, really interesting. And honestly, I've never heard a panel anything like that before, and so I really appreciate you being part of Yuricon 2023.
Well, thank you.